I chose the wrong path. I want to be honest about the choosing, not the path itself, which had its own character and cost, but the choosing of it. Because I could tell this as a story about being led somewhere by circumstance, about things happening to me rather than about me making selections that had real consequences. That version is easier and it's also dishonest. I chose it. At each decision point, I chose it. The path I'm describing is the one I took in my early 30s when I prioritized prestige over meaning for 4 consecutive years, and by the time I looked up from the choosing, I had built a life that was impressive in all the visible ways and hollow in the ways that only I could feel. The prestige was real. I want to acknowledge that because I think it matters. The things I was choosing were genuinely impressive. The firm I worked at had a reputation. The deals I worked on were significant. The compensation was significant. When people asked what I did, the answer produced a specific response, a slight elevation in their attention, a recalibration of their assessment of me. I noticed that response and I fed it, for 4 years, with continued choices in the direction of more of the same. What I was feeding, I understood much later, was not myself. I was feeding the response. I was living inside someone else's evaluation of my life as if that evaluation were nutritious. Meaning, it turns out, is not the same as impressiveness. This sounds obvious stated plainly. Inside the experience, the two things can feel very similar. When the work you're doing is recognized as important by the people around you, and you are rewarded for doing it well, there is a real signal that can be mistaken for engagement. The signal is, this matters. The mattering is real, it matters to someone. The question you're not asking is, does it matter to me? I wasn't asking that question because I was afraid of the answer. Not catastrophically afraid, just reluctant. Because the answer to does this matter to me would have required a follow-up question about what did matter to me, and that question felt more uncertain and less safe than continuing on the path that was already producing recognizable returns. I chose the known path over the uncertain one. For 4 years, consistently, at every juncture where a different choice was available. The moment it became unsustainable arrived slowly and then all at once. I was in a meeting, a significant meeting, the kind that would have felt important to me 4 years earlier, and I noticed that I was performing engagement rather than having it. I was asking the right questions in the right tone with the right energy, and underneath all of that I was entirely absent. Not tired. Not distracted. Absent in the specific way of someone who is no longer present in their own life. I left the firm 6 months after that meeting. Not dramatically, I don't do dramatic exits, I've learned. Methodically, with proper notice, with genuine gratitude for what I'd learned. And then I spent about 18 months in the uncertain territory I'd been avoiding, finding out what actually mattered to me without the scaffolding of impressive work to tell me who I was. That period was uncomfortable. Not unbearable. The uncertainty I'd been afraid of turned out to be survivable. More than survivable, it was generative. In the absence of the prestige signal telling me the work mattered, I had to find out for myself what mattered. That finding out was difficult and worthwhile and produced a real answer. I work differently now. The work I do has less prestige in the conventional sense and more of something that I can't fully explain, but that involves actually being present in the room when I'm working. Actually caring about the outcome. Actually feeling something when the thing goes well. The path I chose was not the wrong path in the sense of being a wasteland. I learned real things there. I built real skills. What it was wrong for was me, for my specific, particular relationship to meaning and work and what makes a life feel inhabited. That's the only sense in which there are wrong paths. Not wrong in themselves. Wrong for the specific person who chose them. And the only way to know if a path is wrong for you is to ask yourself the question you're afraid of. Does this actually matter to me? Ask it. Often. Honestly. The answer will tell you where to go. Here is what I carry forward from this, and what I hope might be useful if you recognize any part of your own story in mine. The pattern I described does not operate because we are careless or unintelligent or unaware. It operates because it has a function, because it is doing something for us that we have not found another way to do. Staying in the wrong situation, staying silent when we should speak, not walking away when the door is right there, all of these behaviors persist because they are solving something, even if imperfectly. They are providing some version of comfort or protection or identity that we have not yet found a better way to provide. Understanding that function is the first move. Not judging the behavior, but asking honestly, what is this doing for me? What would I have to give up if I stopped? What am I afraid will happen if I make the change I know I need to make? Those questions do not dissolve the pattern automatically, but they make it visible in a new way. And visibility changes the relationship to the thing. When you can see what something is doing, you can start to choose whether you want it to keep doing it. The change that followed was not easier because I understood the mechanism. It was the same difficulty. But I went into it knowing what I was moving through rather than being entirely inside it without perspective. That perspective is what I want to pass on here. Not the specific story. The structure. The shape of how we stay in things longer than we should, how we look away from things we can see, how we tell ourselves the thing will change without giving it a mechanism for changing. You are not alone in this. It is not a character flaw. It is how the human nervous system manages uncertainty and fear. But you can do something different. The doing starts with the looking. Look at it. Directly. Honestly. Without the story that makes it easier to carry. And then decide what you want to do with what you see. That decision, fully conscious and fully yours, is the only kind that actually changes anything. There is also something I want to say about the specific moment of turning toward rather than away, the moment when you actually do the thing you have been not doing. Because that moment has a texture that I was not prepared for, and that I think is worth naming so you know what to expect when you reach it. It does not feel like relief. Not at first. The moment of change, of finally having the conversation, or walking away, or saying the thing, or making the decision, often feels worse before it feels better. There is a period of acute discomfort in which the old equilibrium has been disturbed but the new one has not yet settled. You have stopped managing the avoidance, which means the thing you were avoiding is now fully present, no longer softened by distance. That period is real and it is temporary. I want to say both of those things with equal emphasis. It is real. Do not be surprised by it, do not mistake it for evidence that you made the wrong choice. And it is temporary, it has a duration, and that duration is almost always shorter than the years of management that preceded it. The other side of that period is different. Not perfect, change does not produce perfection. But different in the specific way of someone who has stopped spending energy on maintaining something and can now spend that energy somewhere else. The ambient cost disappears. The weight that you had normalized as simply the weight of life turns out to have been specific and removable. I have felt that release more than once. Each time it is instructive about how much I had been carrying that I didn't know I was carrying. You probably know what you're carrying. You just haven't decided to put it down yet. When you decide, it will be hard first and better after. That is almost always the order of things. And the better, when it arrives, is real. What I notice now, in the life I have after the story I told here, is a kind of attentiveness I didn't have before. Not anxiety, that's different. Anxiety is looking for the thing that might go wrong. What I have is more like a quiet, ongoing check-in. Am I here because I want to be? Am I saying what I actually think? Am I moving toward what matters or managing around something I haven't named? These questions don't produce constant disruption. Most of the time the answer is, yes, I am where I want to be, saying what I think, moving in the right direction. The check-in confirms what I thought. And that confirmation is itself valuable, it builds a different relationship with my own choices. They feel more like choices and less like things happening to me. On the occasions when the answer is different, when the check-in reveals an avoidance or a suppression or a staying too long, I try to act on the information faster than I used to. Not immediately, not impulsively, but without the elaborate deferral structure. Without the "I'll address this when the conditions are better." The conditions will not be better. They will be different. Different is workable. Better is a fiction. I am the only condition that changes. And I change through the practice of looking and then acting on what I see. That's the whole thing. The looking and the acting. Over and over. For as long as it takes. Which is your whole life. But a whole life spent actually inside it is worth more than a whole life spent at the edge of it, managing the view. I know which one I want. I think you do too.